8 soldiers entered the stuffy room. As they lay down in the uncomfortable cots, IVs are quickly hooked up. They are alone. Within 5 minutes, numbness begins, starting in the legs, rising higher and higher until they feel like they're floating. It's a pleasant feeling until the terrible pain strikes. So terrible it makes them puke, so agonizing that one man tries to claw his own eyes out. The other soldiers stumble out of their beds and wobble in pain to help the panicked man. Meanwhile, a nurse stands in the corner, taking notes, making no attempt to help them. This is Edgewood Arsenal. Edgewood Arsenal was a military facility that conducted a top-secret operation from 1948 to 1975. It was created due to tensions between the U.S. and Russia during the Cold War. The U.S. wanted to make a weapon in case of an attack. The goal of this weapon in operation was to make psychochemical weaponry that can incapacitate an enemy without killing them. A New York Times 1964 newspaper article says, according to one Army spokesman, the ideal mixture would bring happily intoxicated enemy troops into our lines with their hands up, humming the Star-Spangled Banner.
In order to create this ideal mixture with the technology available at the time, the military decided in 1955 to test possible chemicals on U.S. Army soldiers without proper consent. Tragically, volunteers weren't fully aware of what they were getting into. This made Edgewood's operation classified, as they did not want the general public to know that they were using their own soldiers as test subjects. The American military site in Maryland was the location of various triumphs in military technology during the 1950s. Still, Edgewood Arsenal conducted tragic medical experimentation on volunteer soldiers that scarred the site for years to come.
Even so, today, some leaders and participants regard the program and its outcomes as a triumphant success in the fields of psychochemical warfare and medicine. Edgewood scientists created a lot of triumphant military and chemical warfare technology. For instance, they invented a machine that makes beeping sounds if chemical nerve agents are in the air, as well as developed new and improved gas masks to further individual protection. Gas-protecting clothes were also made for soldiers fighting in combat. Scientists also researched and developed medical treatments for those exposed to certain nerve agents, as well as invented artificial respiratory technology.
Edgewood is said to have contributed over 300 triumphant discoveries, studies, and technology to chemical core research in the Army Chemical Center. However, test subjects were tragically used to make sure these products worked. The treatment and impact these soldiers received truly exposes the tragic effects of Edgewood. According to Eric Muth, a test subject, exposure to toxic chemicals was tragically painful.
Burning sensations, stinging of the skin and eyes, retching. One time we had this thing called DM, and it was an arsenic, and you couldn't help but puke.
After his time at Edgewood, he settled down locally in Milford, Connecticut with his family, where he worked as an optometrist and managed to do a triumphant amount of good in the community. He centered his focus on volunteering for Connecticut police and fire departments, though for some time he also became the commander of the Disabled American Veterans of Milford. He has received many Connecticut-related awards, including the Milford Living Treasure Award.
He continued to help Connecticut until he started feeling the devastating effects of the tragic experiments he was put through.
I have some problems. I'm a 100% disabled veteran. And so yeah, it did affect my health.
Edgewood had tragic components from the start. Soldiers were immediately misinformed when just signing up to volunteer. Eric Muth confirms this.
We did not have informed consent.
Even on this recruitment poster, the operation claims to be looking for medical research volunteers. There is no mention of chemicals or gases being used. This made Edgewood appealing, even more so the benefits to its volunteers. Overall, it appeared to be an attractive military job for those who weren't interested in active combat. Muth volunteered twice because of this.
I volunteered the second time, but that time things went a little askew. I had drugs, and they did not tell us about that.
Later, Muth found out he was exposed to THC, a form of marijuana that is 50 times the strength of the average street jug.
I had it continuously for 3 days, and I was in and out of consciousness during all that time.
Muth also experienced many hallucinations.
Over my own body, which was like an operating room or a gurney, and there were white coat guys all around me, obviously doctors, and behind them was a group of officers observing what was going on and what my reactions were to things.
Day after day, he was put through these tragic tests, some in the form of shots and others where he was put in rooms filled with toxic gas. A gas mask was the only form protected against these substances.
Mind-boggling, because you think, well, this mask was protecting me, but it wasn't at all, and before you know it, you're on the floor.
Sadly, it was unknown if these products actually protected one when exposed. 7,000 other soldiers were used as guinea pigs to find out.
Years after Moot was released from Edgewood, he started to feel the effects of exposure and applied to be a Veterans Association or VA disabled veteran. He and other Edgewood volunteers were rejected to get full VA health coverage because the experiments were classified. This top secret operation made it difficult to prove that he was ever put through military experiments to lead to these effects.
But it took like almost 10 years to get to the 100% disability. Proven,
Yeah.
And you can't prove something if you don't have the adequate records to prove it.
Edgewood participants took a vow of secrecy, so they were forbidden to talk to anybody about what took place at Edgewood, including their doctors. This not only made it impossible to prove that Edgewood human experiments actually happened, but tragically was detrimental to their health. Their doctors were ill-equipped to treat them, as they did not have the full story. This also made it difficult to receive VA disablement, an important requirement in receiving healthcare from the Veterans Association. Many soldiers tragically passed as a result of this ill consideration. If the oath had been lifted earlier, they could have gotten the proper healthcare they needed to survive. Instead, thousands have tragically died without even proof that they were ever harmed by the military.
A widow of a participant claims, "I have seen animals at shelters get better care than force received from the VA." These soldiers suffered tragically within Edgewood and have been bearing the life-wrenching effects since.
In 2009, Edgewood veterans sued the VA to receive all the information regarding the chemical agents they were exposed to and asked for permission to tell their doctors what they had endured. It was a triumphant victory. The lifted contract helped veterans become 100% VA disabled with full healthcare coverage. The lawsuit not only gave Edgewood veterans more freedom and opportunity, but it also brought awareness to what tragically took place nearly 50 years ago. After all, Moot, along with many participants, don't want to be lost in history.
I don't want to be forgotten,
These soldiers shouldn't be tragically left in history. They should be celebrated triumphantly.
Today, the Edgewood facility is now connected to the Aberdeen Proving Ground, or APG, and is now known specifically as Aberdeen South. After being rebranded and reconstructed several times, it has become a center of excellence, making it triumphantly beneficial for the military. Yet, the core purpose and mission of the facility remains the same. According to APG's Public Affairs, the many reorganizations and name changes since 1917 did not change the primary mission of the various organizations located in APG South, to provide the best chemical and biological defense equipment, supplies, and procedures. Although the military still looks for the best chemical and biological equipment, it doesn't experiment on humans today.
Gregory Mahal, the APG Deputy Chief of Public Affairs in the U.S. Army Communications Electronics Command, confirms this statement.
Yeah, we don't experiment with the people, no.
Even past participants like Eric Muth believe nothing of the sort could happen in this modern day.
I think that the time is right, that America is at that stage where we would do that again.
Instead of testing, Aberdeen South, as well as APG overall, have become more focused on training and preparing for all types of warfare. According to Major General Randy Taylor, the president of APG, if a soldier uses a piece of technology for protection, intelligence, to shoot, to move, or communicate, chances are that it was developed, tested, and fielded by an APG organization. Soldiers aren't the only ones benefiting from the abundance of breakthroughs, discoveries, and inventions created at APG.
A lot of innovation from the Army that gets developed here makes its way out into the public sector, from Kevlar vests for police to Gore-Tex and clothing improvements that make things lighter and better in terms of keeping you warm during swimming or keeping you warm during hunting or skiing, for that matter. We've got a whole vehicle line called the Jeep that has made its way, and the Hummer has made its way off of the military proving grounds and into the private sector. Walkie-talkies, which of course now lead to cell phones.
APG South, the new Edgewood Arsenal, has shifted its efforts from tragically finding a way to combat biological and chemical warfare to creating and releasing inventions, all of which have triumphantly benefited not only the military, but the public today.